So, bringing the world into the church. I mean, if we look at what's happening in the world, this is such a ridiculous example, but this is how far you can go.
What you're about to watch is a presentation by Professor Walter Veith about bringing the world into the church. And I think what Professor Veith said is actually happening in our churches today. We are going to watch, interact, and I will give my thoughts at the end of the video. So let's get started.
So, bringing the world into the church. I mean, if we look at what's happening in the world, this is such a ridiculous example, but this is how far you can go. You can bring in, like Grace Cathedral, a very scantily clad lady singing with great pomp in the churches and revolving their church services around such issues, and call this the working of the Holy Spirit. It's nothing other than old pagan goddess worship. And in a lesser way, some churches think that that's fine to bring it even into God's church today. But it's nothing other than heathenism creeping into the church. Nothing other. And what about worldly activities, taking the mind off present truth? Some of our people are sports crazy. I used to be sports crazy. If my team lost in the past, I would be inclined to demolish the television set that told me so. I mean, how ridiculous can you get? And it's all a question of putting a ball in a net, and one year the one puts the ball in the next, and the next one the other. It's ridiculous. And we have so many worldly things that we talk about, and we don't even see because our minds are so occupied with that stupid box that we don't even see what's happening in terms of present truth. And isn't it interesting? I'm not going to talk about these things, but that Donald Trump and Putin and the Pope all get presented by the Croatian president with a T-shirt with the number 9 on it. Turn it around. And the other one can't get it because you only need 3 9s, or 3 upside-down 9s if you want. The other one gets a 10. I mean, the symbolisms are all there. And who excites the world to bring in all of this stuff? Here's the Catholic Herald, the Catholic visionary who founded the World Cup. And the victory symbol was basically the goddess. Do we want to become like the world? Or do we have to separate ourselves from the world? Do we want to bring the world into the church and pretend that we have a new way to entertain minds? And then we wonder why one school after another is closing, why our universities have to solicit help from outside, why we have to go into partnerships with Babylon in order to remain functional. Isn't there a deeper problem? Is it just a sign of the times? Never was there a time when the truth suffered more from being misrepresented, belittled, demerited through the perverse disputings of men than in these last days. That's present truth. Men have brought themselves in with the heterogeneous mass of heresies which they represent as oracles for the people. The people are charmed with some strange new thing and are not wise in experience to discern the character of the ideas that men may frame up as something. But to call it something of great consequence and tie it to the oracles of God does not make it truth. We cannot practice stupidity such as spiritual formation or emerging church methodologies or whatever they like to call it and pretend that we call it truth. When we're preaching universalism, everybody is saved. What's the point of the law? You might as well throw away half the Bible. Is there no retributive action? Is there not a judgment coming? Is there not a decision that has to be made? Where do we come across such ideologies? They're certainly not in harmony with the Word and with what the spirit of prophecy teaches.
There is a difference between the church and the world, with each leading its own path. Even though the church is in the world, it does not and should not accept and follow the patterns of the world. But friends, what do we see in our churches? There are some people who are actively bringing worldly patterns, or who are actively bringing the world into the church with the idea of keeping the youth, or with the idea of entertaining the church members. But do we go to church to be entertained, or we go to church to listen to the true word of God? So in some of our churches, we see worship styles and preaching that seek to entertain minds, to entertain worshipers, rather than to present the truth. We also see dance moves, dress styles, and LGBT influences that show that we are bringing the world into the church. Now, friends, the Bible wants us not to make friends with the world. In other words, there should not be any relationship between the church and the world. And if a church or a believer does that, they become an enemy of the Lord. Let's see what James chapter 4 verse 4 has to say. Do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 also tells us not to conform to the world. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Friends, we cannot afford to bring the patterns of the world into the church, or let me say, we cannot afford to bring the world into the church, because from the scriptures, we know that the world does not have anything good and permanent to offer. 1 John 2 verse 17 says, "The world is passing away, and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever." Friends, it is surprising to hear that sometimes the people who bring the world into the church are some of our leaders. And I think we should not allow or welcome anything that does not go in line with the Bible in the church, in the SDA church. Let me also know what you think about this subject in the comment section. Do you see more of the world in the church today? What are your thoughts? Thank you for watching. My name is Brother Lawrence, and see you next time.